There are over 170,000 words in the English language. Believe it or not, every word in English can be put into one of 8 different categories called parts of speech, which helps make analyzing sentences a lot easier. In today's video, we'll go over each of these different parts of speech and explore examples to help us identify them. Let's get started. There are 8 different parts of speech: nouns, verbs, adjectives, pronouns, articles, interjections, prepositions, and conjunctions. Let's go over each one individually. Nouns are words that represent people, places, things, or ideas. Some examples would be pencil, fish, love, office, and John. These are all people, places, things, or ideas. Let's look at one of these in a sentence. The fish swam around the large rock. In this example, there are 2 nouns, fish and rock. In this case, these are both things. Just like nouns, pronouns are another part of speech that represent a person, place, thing, or idea. The difference with pronouns is that they are words that replace the specific name of that person, place, thing, or idea. For example, instead of saying, John, Susie, and Mark went outside to play, you could say, they went outside to play. Other examples of pronouns include she, it, I, and we. Our third part of speech is verbs. Verbs are words that describe an action or state of being. For example, run, sleep, hide, and reach are all verbs because they describe an action taking place. Is, are, and am are examples of state of being verbs. Can you spot the verb in this sentence? Wash the dishes and feed the cat before 6 o'clock. There are actually 2 verbs in this sentence. Wash and feed are both verbs because they are actions being done to something. Is that chair green or gray? In this sentence, the verb is the word is. It's a state of being verb because it is helping to express what state the chair is in, green or gray. Green and gray are both examples of our next part of speech, adjectives. Adjectives are words that describe or modify a noun. Examples include words like cute, purple, kind, and fascinating. Let's identify the adjectives in this sentence. The beautiful scarlet flowers swayed in the gentle breeze. This example is full of adjectives. Beautiful and scarlet describe what the flowers looked like, while gentle describes how the breeze felt. Articles a, an, and the are adjectives that are used to define if something is specific or not. For example, pick the card. In this sentence, the article lets us know that the card was likely mentioned earlier by the speaker, meaning this is a specific card. What if we change the article to a? Pick a card. In this example, the card could just be any card, not a specific one that the article the implies. Our next part of speech is the interjection. Interjections are words that show excitement or other displays of emotions. Examples include, phew, wow, and ugh, ugh, another email from my boss. Here, the interjection, ugh, shows the speaker isn't very happy about getting this email. Our next part of speech is the preposition. Prepositions are words that link one noun or pronoun to another noun or pronoun in the sentence. The relationship is usually about the space, time, or a place. Here are some examples of prepositions in a sentence. He went to the store. In this example, the preposition to links the pronoun he with the noun store. Here are a few more sentences with the prepositions highlighted. The cup is on the counter. They've been gone since 12 p.m. She ran by the tree. Another part of speech that connects words together is the conjunction. Conjunctions are parts of speech that connect 2 or more words, phrases, or clauses together. A way to memorize common conjunctions is to remember the acronym fanboys. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. Let's look at some example sentences. I went outside and washed the car. Here, the conjunction and links a phrase and a clause to be one compound sentence. How about this one? I was really sleepy, but I still stayed at work late. In this sentence, but is the conjunction because it combines the two clauses I was really sleepy and I still stayed at work late. Okay, now that we've covered parts of speech, let's see what you remember. What part of speech is the highlighted word in this sentence? Ouch! That had to have hurt. A. Conjunction. B. Interjection. C. Noun. Or D. Adjective. The correct answer is B. An interjection. What part of speech are the highlighted words in this sentence? Rachel ran to the store and bought some eggs. A. Action verb. B. Preposition. C. Conjunction. Or D. State of being verb. The correct answer is A. Action verb. Which word in the following sentence is a preposition? The beautiful forest sat just below the mountain. A. Beautiful. B. Just. C. Below. Or D. The. The correct answer is C. Below. Hi, and welcome to this video about capitalization. Today we'll be reviewing the most common capitalization rules in English and using some examples to see how to apply them. Let's get started. Often one of the first rules that people learn is that the first word in a sentence should always be capitalized. It doesn't matter if the sentence is a statement, a question, or an exclamation. Super simple. Another easy rule to remember is that the pronoun I will always be capitalized, even if it appears in the middle of a sentence. Proper nouns are also always capitalized. Remember, a proper noun is a noun that refers to a specific person, place, or organization. This includes things like titles, company names, sports teams, political groups, and more. For example, in this sentence, Kyle is capitalized because it's the name that refers to a specific person. Here, Pointville High School is capitalized because it's the name of a specific school. Now, in these examples, you wouldn't capitalize school or store because those words aren't naming a specific place. This same rule applies when you refer to family members by their family title, like mom, dad, or grandma. Let's take the word mom, for instance. If you wrote, I asked mom to drive us to the mall, the word mom would be capitalized because it's acting as the name of a specific person. It's a proper noun. However, if you wrote, my mom works at an insurance company, the word mom would not be capitalized. In this case, mom is referring to her relationship to you as a family member. It's not referring to her by name. Titles that precede names work in a very similar way. They are capitalized when they're part of a person's name, but not when they're used as descriptors. Take the word mayor, for instance. You would capitalize mayor in the sentence, Mayor Bob Jones will be speaking at 1 p.m. because it's part of his name. However, if you wrote, Bob Jones, mayor of Huntsville, will be speaking at 1 p.m., you would not capitalize mayor because it's not part of the name of a specific person. Titles of published works are a bit more difficult. If you've ever had to reference the title of a book, an article, or other written work, chances are you've gotten stuck trying to remember which words to capitalize and which ones to leave uncapitalized. The rule for this is pretty simple. Capitalize all the major words except prepositions or articles, unless it is the first word of the title. Here are a few examples. Notice that the only prepositions and articles in these titles that are capitalized are the ones at the very beginning. All of the others are lowercase. All of the other words are considered important, so they're capitalized. Here are a few more super quick rules before we move on. Capitalize the days of the week. Capitalize holidays. Capitalize months. capitalize directional regions of countries, but not compass directions. Okay, now that we've looked at words you should always capitalize, let's take a look at some that you should never capitalize unless they're the first word of a sentence or appear in a title. Do not capitalize the names of seasons. Do not capitalize the names of elements. Do not capitalize general animal names unless a proper adjective is included. For instance, you wouldn't capitalize black bear or red panda, but you would capitalize the G in German shepherd. Do not capitalize the word the before proper nouns unless the article is part of the proper noun. Do not capitalize the first word that comes after a colon or semicolon. There are many, many more rules and exceptions to rules that I haven't mentioned. These are simply the most commonly used rules.
When reading a piece of literature, especially if it's lengthy, it can be difficult to pinpoint the main ideas and events that took place. Summarizing text is a useful tool for not only recalling lengthy text, but also for organizing the text's main ideas. In this video, we'll look at how to write a summary and what a summary should include. A good summary is a brief recollection of the main point of the piece. The summary should include main characters, events and places, the overall purpose of the piece of writing, and, most importantly, it should be shorter than the original text. Summaries should not include supporting details that aren't important to the text's main point or plot. So, how do we identify what ideas to include and what to leave out? First, it's important to review the text. If you're going to write a summary, don't just skim through the text or just read a chapter here and there. Reading through the entire text at length helps you to have a clear understanding of the piece. If the piece has chapter names or subheadings, these can help you organize the main ideas that are mentioned in those sections. The next thing you'll want to do is identify the main ideas, characters, or events. Pinpointing any narrative arcs or sequential events can help abbreviate the major points of the text. Who are the subjects of the story? What is happening to them and where did it happen? Was there an exchange of ideas in the text? If so, did the text explain or give examples to support the idea? All these questions are important to keep in mind when you begin summarizing. Once you have answers to these questions, you'll need to go through and choose what is most important. Which details move the story further or convey the main idea best? Pick these points and include them when writing your final summary. As you begin to write, remember to use your own words. Make sure your recollection is accurate but not verbatim of the original text. Whether you're summarizing a story or a research paper, it's important to write chronologically so the important events in the story are in the correct order. Jumbling the order of events will make your summary confusing and hard to follow. Lastly, it's important to be objective. Not all literature is unbiased. However, it is still your job in a summary to retell events or ideas that do not convey your personal opinions, unless explicitly asked. That means avoiding adjectives or other words that describe events negatively or positively, unless you are quoting the original author or a character in the text you're summarizing. When summarizing the opinion of others, make sure to state whose opinion it is.
When you come upon a word you don't understand while reading, you have three options. You can choose to look it up in a dictionary, ignore it, or try to figure out what it means based on the context in which it's used. If you're in a test environment, you don't usually have the luxury of a dictionary, and it certainly isn't wise to ignore the word altogether. Therefore, it's a good skill to learn how a word's context can help you better understand what the word means. Searching for a word's context is as simple as looking at other words around the troublesome word. There are, in general, 5 main types of context clues: illustrations, synonyms, contrasts, inferences, and punctuation. The first context clues fall into the category of illustrations, examples or explanations of the word. This may seem overly simple, but difficult words are often followed by information the writer uses to explain the word's meaning. Look for words like such as, including, for instance, and like. This can be the author's way of further clarifying a difficult word, and you can sometimes make a logical guess about the word's meaning from the example alone. Take a look at this sentence. An occupation such as that of a hat maker or a postman is important for anyone who wants to earn a steady wage. In this sentence, we're looking at the word occupation. Not only is it a long word that we might not understand at first, but it also has multiple meanings. An occupation can mean a job, but it can also mean to take up space. It can even be used to talk about military invasion when one country is occupying another. When we look at the sentence, though, we see two examples given of the word in question. Neither a hat maker or a postman are particularly prone to occupying other countries, or at least that's not their primary purpose. So we can assume that the word occupation is referencing a job or employment opportunity. A second category of context clues is synonyms. A synonym is a word that shares a near meaning with another word. For example, loud and noisy mean similar things, but are two different words. Take a look at the following sentence to see how synonyms can be good context clues. The patient's hippocampus was an uncharted minefield. His memory was so bad, the psychiatrist wondered whether that part of the brain was even processing memory and emotion the way it should. Hippocampus is a very confusing word in this sentence. Right away, the word brain tells us that the hippocampus is likely a part of the brain. In fact, it's the part of the brain thought to be responsible for memory and emotion. The sentence says the psychiatrist was concerned the patient's memory and emotion weren't being processed the way it should be. So we can deduce that the hippocampus is responsible for those processes. The clue had both synonyms, the word brain, and a full reinstatement of the initial sentence that clarified what the hippocampus was. A third helpful context clue is the contrast or antonym clue. Antonyms are the opposite of synonyms. For example, hot and cold are antonyms. Sometimes contrast sentences can tell us what a word is not, and that in turn can give us an idea of what the word is. Look at this. Mary was known for having smooth skin, but to her horror, she woke up on her wedding day with a papule on her nose. Do you know what a papule is? Neither did I actually, but I can see the word but contrasting whatever it is with Mary's smooth skin. That, coupled with a clue about her nose, leads me to believe it is a zit of sorts, which in fact it is. A fourth clue to help you gain a bit of context surrounding words you don't understand is inference, or general context. This is a bit more vague of an explanation, but it basically means that sometimes we don't have clear synonyms or antonyms, and we don't have an illustration after the difficult word. Sometimes we just have to look at the paragraph as a whole and put a few floating parts together. This is best explained with an example. The haberdashery was Bob's favorite place. He bought all his suits there. The staff was friendly and always respectful. There's no direct description of what a haberdashery is, but the second sentence tells us that at the very least it sells suits. We also see that it's Bob's favorite place, so we can guess without certainty, but it's still a clue that it's a clothing place for men. The word staff couples with the word bought to let us know it's likely a store of some sort. The final helpful context clue is the clue of punctuation. Sometimes commas or quotation marks can be used to clarify the meaning of a word. Quotation marks can show the word has special meaning. Brackets can enclose additional explanation, and italics can further define a word. Think about the following. Matcha, Japanese green tea, has many health benefits. The parenthetical phrase gives a pretty clear description of what matcha is. In many ways, this kind of punctuation is the easiest context clue of all to deduce. These are the 5 main clues you can fall back on when trying to decipher the meaning of a difficult word. But in general, remember that when you come upon a word that isn't in your vocabulary, you don't have to give up. Paragraphs often hold together clues that can give you helpful hints about what the mystery word actually means.
Separating fact from opinion can be a difficult task. In this video, we will discuss the distinction between fact and opinion and offer some helpful tips for distinguishing between the two. A fact is a statement that can be proven to be true by the use of evidence. Factual statements are true in all cases and for all people. In other words, facts are universal. Some examples include dogs are mammals. Albany is the capital of New York. Mount Everest is the tallest mountain on Earth. Each of these statements is true. Furthermore, each statement is verifiable and not debatable, provided that definitions are agreed upon. Put simply, evidence exists that could potentially prove or disprove each claim. Opinions, unlike facts, are neither true nor false. An opinion can express a belief, attitude, value, judgment, or feeling. Some examples include, dogs are the best mammals in existence. Albany is the most interesting city in New York. World War II was a terrible war. Each of these statements expresses an opinion. Note that each is debatable. In other words, one can potentially agree or disagree with. Debate, a statement of opinion. Note that the final statement, World War II was a terrible war, strikes many of us as factual. However, this is a statement of opinion. Yes, most people would consider World War II terrible. However, there is always the possibility that somebody out there holds a different opinion, as strange as they may seem. It is very rare for a statement with a value word like terrible to be factual. Now that we know the differences between a fact and an opinion, it's important to know how to distinguish between them when reading literature. Let's look at some helpful strategies. Watch for opinion masked as fact. A lot of times, professional or technical language can seem factual. In particular, you'll want to watch out for predictions. Predictions are opinions since they cannot be verified in the present. This is even true if the prediction is being expressed by an expert with an informed opinion. A zoologist who predicts that a particular animal will go extinct in 50 years, for example, is stating an informed opinion. This opinion is based on evidence, research, and expertise, but because it cannot be presently confirmed, it is not a fact. Value or judgment words often signal an opinion. LeBron James is very tall is a statement most people would agree with. However, the word very makes this problematic. What exactly does it mean to be very tall? It is not defined. What one person considers very tall, another may consider average or even short. The word very is an example of a value or judgment word. Here's a list of value and judgment words. If you see one of these in a statement, then the view being expressed is likely an opinion. Look for words like should or ought to. These words usually suggest a course of action or give advice. Though this advice may be advisable, it is rarely factual. No matter how much we agree with a should statement, it is by its very nature opinion. For instance, one should avoid smoking cigarettes may be sound advice with a lot of supporting evidence, but it is still an opinion. Smoking cigarettes can cause a variety of health ailments, on the other hand, can be verified and is therefore factual. In essence, facts can be verified by evidence, and opinions are statements of belief, attitude, value, judgment, or feeling. Before we go, let's look at a quick review question. Which of the following statements is factual? A. Ohio is a beautiful state. B. You should never drive faster than the speed limit. C. George Washington was the first president of the United States. Or D. George Washington was a great public speaker. The answer is C. This is the only option that can be backed up by evidence. Hi, and welcome to this video on the structural elements of poetry. Some may think poetry is just a way of confusing people. And yes, while it can oftentimes be more difficult to understand than a novel, my hope is that after this video, you'll have a better appreciation for poetry and may be able to actually enjoy it. Today, we're going to be working through the structure of poetry from largest to smallest. Let's begin with the superstructure of a poem, the form. According to the Poetry Archive, form in poetry can be understood as the physical structure of the poem, the length of the lines, their rhythms, their system of rhymes, and repetition. In this sense, it is normally reserved for the type of poem where these features have been shaped into a pattern, especially a familiar pattern. That is, there are many different kinds of poems, some of which don't really have any regular patterns. Many, however, do follow a pattern, especially classical and ancient poems. You may have heard of the term stanza. A stanza is a grouping of lines within a poem. The author of Alice in Wonderland, Lewis Carroll, was also a poet. His poem, The Crocodile, has 2 stanzas of 4 lines each. How doth the little crocodile improve his shining tail, and pour the waters of the Nile on every golden scale? How cheerfully he seems to grin, how neatly spreads his claws, and welcomes little fishes in with gently smiling jaws. Another type of poem is an acrostic, where the first letter of each line spells something. Isaac Watts, who was born in 1674, wrote an acrostic that spelled out his name when he was just 7 years old. I'm a vile, polluted lump of earth, so I've continued ever since my birth. Although Jehovah grace does daily give me, as sure this monster Satan will deceive me. Come, therefore, Lord, from Satan's claws relieve me. Wash me in thy blood, O Christ, and grace divine impart. Then search and try the corners of my heart, that I in all things may be fit to do service to thee and sing thy praises too. Moving smaller, let's discuss patterns within lines. One of these patterns is feet, which is related to meter. In poetry, a foot is a basic repeated sequence of meter composed of 2 or more accented or unaccented syllables. The accent is where the emphasis falls on the word, as in when you put the emphasis on the wrong syllable. There are 4 primary feet: iambic, as in the word destroy, anapestic, as in the word intervene, trochaic, as in the word topsy, and dactylic, as in the word merrily. A common foot and line length combination is iambic pentameter, which was generally how Shakespeare wrote. This means there are 5 unaccented or accented feet per line. Line length generally varies from 1 foot to 8 feet. You're forgiven if you're thinking I'm talking about buying lumber. Now, we get another layer smaller, with the structure of individual words known as meter. Paul Fussell, in his crucial book on poetry, defines meter as what results when the natural rhythmical movements of colloquial speech are heightened, organized, and regulated so that repetition emerges from the relative phonetic haphazard of ordinary utterance. Let's unpack that. What Fussell is talking about is organizing words so that they have a rhythm to them, like a song has rhythm. Think of a basic drum beat. In English, we accent words, which means that some syllables receive more emphasis than others. This creates opportunity to create rhythm. According to the Purdue Owl, there are 4 common ways to view meter: syllabic, a general counting of syllables per line; accentual, a counting of accents only per line. Syllables may vary between accents; accentual syllabic, a counting of syllables and accents; and quantitative, which measures the duration of words. So we've discussed the major structure of a poem, the lines and the words. Now let's talk about the smallest structural element of poetry, rhyming. According to the Poetry Foundation, a rhyme is the repetition of syllables, typically at the end of a verse line. And just to be confusing, there are several different types of rhymes. Eye or visual rhymes, which are words that look similar but are not pronounced similarly, as in the word flood and the word wood. End rhyme, the most common type, is the rhyming of the final syllables of a line, like in the previous example of crocodile and Nile. Feminine or slant rhyme applies to the rhyming of 1 or more unstressed syllables, such as dicing and enticing. Identical rhyme employs the same word, identically in sound and sense, twice in rhyming positions, like when Isaac Watts ended 2 of his lines from the earlier example with me. Internal rhyme is when a word from the middle of a line is rhymed with a word at the end of the line. Masculine rhyme describes those rhymes ending in a stressed syllable, such as hells and bells. It is the most common type of rhyme in English poetry. Monorhyme is the use of only 1 rhyme in a stanza. Forced or pararhyme is an unnatural rhyme that forces a rhyme where it should not otherwise be. For example, most of you will think that nothing rhymes with orange. The famous rapper Eminem vehemently disagrees and has forced orange to rhyme with many other words in his songs, like the following lines from Business. Set to blow college dorm room doors off the hinges, oranges, peach pears, plums, syringes, alliteration or head rhyme. This one is also self-explanatory. The first syllables rhyme. The careful cat burglar crept through the corridor. There's usually a pattern in poems with rhyming schemes, such as ABBA, ABBA, or CD, CD, CD. The individual letters represent lines that rhyme with each other. Up next, we have alliteration, assonance, consonants, and onomatopoeia. Assonance and consonants are similar to rhyme, but they're not quite the same. Because this is English, there's no black and white definition or categorization of these terms or of alliteration. Should they be categorized under rhyme? Depends on who you ask. Encyclopedia Britannica defines assonance as the repetition of stressed vowel sounds within words with different end consonants, as in the phrase quite like. Consonance is the recurrence or repetition of identical or similar consonants, specifically the correspondence of end or intermediate consonants, unaccompanied by like correspondence of vowels at the end of two or more syllables, words, or other units of composition. All of that mostly means that consonance is related to alliteration. Listen for the repeated L sounds in Emily Dickinson's poem 315. Your breath has time to straighten, your brain to bubble cool, deals one imperial thunderbolt that scalps your naked soul. Onomatopoeia is the term for a word that has been created to articulate a sound, such as thunder or the tick-tock of a clock. Using onomatopoeia is a way for a poet to use more sounds in their poems. All right, this is probably enough for one video. Remember, the form of the poem describes the overall patterns, the number and or length of lines, the stanzas, etc. The feet tell you how many patterns of syllables are within a line, and the meter is the rhythm of the words. Thanks so much for watching. We hope this video on structural elements of poetry leaves you prepped and empowered.